think we're still letting people in, so bear with us. Another couple of minutes. Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this Commonword novel writing group. My name is Mickela Sonola and I'm the workshop facilitator here, and it's lovely to be here and seeing you all. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with Commonword, we are a Black-led national portfolio organisation. We receive funding from Arts Council England and we're a registered charity. Commonword began way back in 1977 to support and develop writers from working class backgrounds, people from Black and Asian diaspora, and has seen hundreds, literally hundreds of writers pass through its doors, and many who go on to publication. This particular workshop was revived mid-pandemic to help us as writers to stay motivated and support each other in this crazy thing that we do that we call writing. But it has existed before, and it supported writers such as Jennifer Mukumbi, Vijay Matita, and Pete Kalu. Now, I will go into some of the nuts and bolts of the workshop later, but before then, we have two of our writers sharing a snippet of their current work in progress. Now, please feel free to add questions in the chat. We will make sure we have plenty of time to answer them after the readings. For now, let me introduce you to Radhika Kapoor. Radhika is our Digital Marketing Officer, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about Commonword's wider work. Hi, Radhika.
Hi, thanks, Mickela. So as Mickela's mentioned, Commonword has a number of services and workshops to support writers. So we run workshops, events, and the Black Writers Conference, the panels for which are going to be announced very soon. So the conference will be taking place on the weekend of the 20th to the 21st of November. So save the date and make sure you follow Commonword on our social media, and it's sure to be a really interesting weekend. So the other workshops that Commonword's currently running are Identity Writers Group for Global Majority Creative Writers. That's happening every Wednesday on Zoom. And the Queer Black Book Club, which happens once a month on Zoom as well. So you can visit the workshops page, which I'll share in the chat if you're interested in either of those groups. And I hope you enjoy this evening's event. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Radhika. And I think Beverley's just asked, is the conference online? And yes, it is, Beverley. Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Radhika. Now, the workshop, let me start with telling you a little bit about myself. I'm an author, poet, and short story writer, and I come to this role as a workshop facilitator with 25 years of teaching experience. And I see my role as an educator integral to my own writing, because teaching informs my own writing practice and vice versa. And I wholeheartedly believe that my job is to create a safe, inclusive space for everyone, regardless of their level of education or writing experience and so on. And I take that role very seriously. This particular group has been meeting every other Monday, and the writers take turns to share their work with the group. This is usually a short extract of no more than around 2,000 words. I begin every workshop, which is 2 hours, by the way, with a short prompt, and this is to really get ourselves into a writing mode and help with that transition between, you know, real life and into a sort of more creative mindset. And again, I will happily chat more about the workshops later. But until then, let me introduce you to our first reader, Mimi Webster-Sun. Mimi was born in Shanghai, but grew up in Hong Kong. Her writing journey began as an intrepid journalist reporting for radio and television for the BBC, CNBC in Hong Kong, China, Singapore, and London. These days, she is at home as a playwright and fiction writer and a feeder of neighbourhood cats. Her play Shore to Shore toured extensively and was adapted for radio in 2020. Watch out for her latest radio project, which is a 2-part adaptation of The Good Earth for BBC Radio 4. Mimi is going to be reading an extract from her first novel, which is called The Mountains Between Them. Thank you, Mimi. And just put yourself on mute. Thank you, darling.
Hello, everyone. Yes, right. Okay, so I'm actually reading from something that I've been working on for quite a long time, and it's called The Other Side of the Wall. And it's written in the voice of a young girl. So here it goes. I wake up in the dark and don't know where I am. Then I smell the pigs and remember we're in a village called Shenzhen. We arrived a few days ago, taking the long way from Shanghai because Baba wanted to avoid many places. Baba says from here we can get into Hong Kong where we'll be safe. We're staying in a farmhouse. My little brother Lee and I are not allowed to go out to play, so we spend a lot of time looking out of the window, counting the birds in the rice paddies. The door slams shut. Baba has gone out. He goes out early every morning looking for ways to get into Hong Kong. When he comes back, he talks to Mama and they have an argument. You know I can't swim, and you want me and San to hang on to a car tire and somehow float into Hong Kong? Are you crazy? That was 2 days ago. And then yesterday, no, I'm not going to walk all night in the dark. You might as well leave us here to die. At lunchtime, Baba comes back. He talks to Mama and they get ready to go out. Take care of little San, Baba says, putting on his coat. We'll be back soon. There's steamed buns and pickles if you're hungry. Can we go home and not go to Hong Kong? I ask. Go home? Will you just shut up about going home? Says Mama. Actually, she's not my mother. Mine left 3 years ago when I was 5 years old. She gave me and Lee a big hug. She didn't say anything. She just picked up the suitcase and walked out of our house. We watched her getting into a big black car at the bottom of the drive. The new mother moved in a year later, and San was born the following year. The first thing she said to me was, call me Mama. From now on, I'm your mother. San is a good girl and I don't mind looking after her. Lee and me each had a nanny, but San never had one. Our nannies did everything for us. We didn't see our parents very much. Baba was away for months at a time. We didn't know where he had been or what he did. Our mama was out every day till late. One day our nannies came into the playroom, carrying bundles, their faces shiny with tears. They said, take care, behave yourselves, obey your Baba. Lee cried and wouldn't let his nanny go. Although he's only 2 years younger than me, he's always been a bit of a baby. I said they'll be back soon. But Lee said no, because they are Tao Nan. Only rich people run, I said. But Lee said, the cook says many nationalist soldiers are also running from the communists. I've just finished feeding San when Baba and Mama came back. They talk in low voices. Then Baba tells us, we leave tomorrow night, just the 3 of us. Mama and San will go to Hong Kong separately. Are we walking to Hong Kong? I ask. Can we take the train? We've lost a war and we don't have the right papers for Hong Kong, says Baba. After eating some steamed buns and boiled eggs, the 3 of us climb into the back of a tricycle rickshaw. The skinny driver takes us along, unlit footpaths. At first, we pass a few houses. Then it's all vegetable fields, and the smell of manure is so strong that I feel ill. We stop at a crumbling temple. Next to the temple is a farmhouse without a roof. The fields are filled with weeds. Baba says we wait here for a man to take us to Hong Kong. Finally, the man arrives and we follow him. We walk for ages and then we come to a river where a sampan is tied to a pole. No torches or matches, the man says, going through our pockets, and no noise unless you want to be caught. Now get in. On the other side of the river, we start climbing the hills. The moonlight makes everything blue, blue grass, blue rocks, and blue undergrowth. The outline of the hills reminds me of the film, The Emperor's Lost Treasures. The bounty hunters are buried alive in graves on a hillside. I hold Lee's hand. It's cold and clammy, and I keep losing my grip on him. Lee stops and he wants to pee. Baba gives us a drink of water and we walk again. The moon is gone and I can't see where we're going. Every time I put my foot down, I don't know if I'm stepping on a snake or into a hole. I keep stumbling on the uneven ground. My feet are wet from getting on and off the sampan, and my leather shoes are hard like metal. Where is Hong Kong? I'm walking into a black wall. What is on the other side of it? The cicadas and the frogs scream in unison. What? Or is it caught, caught, caught? Lee stops again and he's crying. I can't, I'm tired. Baba gives him a piggyback and the man takes our bag. We walk in single file, the men in front and I'm following Baba. Every step I take, my shoes step my toes. I keep falling behind. What if I'm lost in the hills? Would I be caught by the communists? On and on we walk. And then I trip on a stone and fall on my face. I stifle my cry. I'm sorry. I struggle to get up, but fall back to the ground. Baba adjusts the strap on the bag, and with it in front, he carries me on his back. The man carries Lee on his back, and we continue our walk to Hong Kong. I wake up. I've been sleeping on Baba's coat on the grass. It's almost light. Baba is sitting next to me. Lee is asleep, huddled against me. Are we in Hong Kong? I ask. Looking around, all I see are hills. Yes, over there. We get a taxi and go to Uncle Wu's house. Have we finished Tao Nan now? Yes, no more running. Baba smiles. Mama and Sansan arrive from Shenzhen. Mama says snakeheads brought it over by boat at night, and Sansan came on the train with Auntie Chi. We move out of Uncle Wu's house to a block of flats. We have two rooms in the front on the ground floor. The kitchen and bathroom are shared by two other families. Baba goes out every morning before Mama gets up. He comes home in the afternoon and cooks for us. Lee and I are playing with the neighbors' children on the street. We make a rope out of elastic bands and take turns to hop and dance, wrapping it around our legs while we chant, little flower made with flour, 35, 37, 41. Mama calls me, so I run into our flat. She's sitting on the bed, putting her slippers on. How long do I have to call you? Have you gone deaf? I didn't hear you. I was playing outside. Mama gets up and walks towards me. This will teach you to listen. She slaps me hard. Now go and boil some hot water. I need to wash. I go to the kitchen and put the kettle on. While I wait for the water to boil, I put the enamel basin, a jug of cold water, soap, Mama's toothbrush and towel on the table. When the kettle boils, I take it to her room. Baba walks in as I'm pouring the hot water into the basin. He takes the kettle from me. How many times have I told you not to let her handle boiling water? He says to Mama. She's too young. She could have a nasty accident. Well, then you better be here to do it for her. Nobody does any work here except me. I work all night to feed all of you. Why don't you get a job and I'll stay at home and boil the water? I bet your friend Chiang Kai-shek isn't living in a dump like this. Mama is getting louder and louder. She says, how come we can't get visas for Taiwan? Why Baba can't find a job while all his nationalist friends are doing well? Baba stands there, his arms hanging by his side. He doesn't say anything. Crouching behind him, I stare at the worn soles of his shoes. He turns and says to me, "Go outside, keep an eye on Lee and Sansan." Lee and the other children have stopped playing. I close the front door and I can still hear Mama's voice. I check the windows and they're shut. "Stop asking me who I'm going out to see. I don't like this any more than you do. I didn't train as a soprano to sing in a nightclub." I squat down by the door and Lee comes and squats next to me. "The evil monkey," Lee says. Sansan comes and sits on my lap, but nothing can stop Mama's words. "Don't ask me for money. Go and earn it yourself." The front door opens and I smell perfume. A pair of turquoise high-heel shoes steps out. Mama walks down the street in a lace cheongsam. 2 days later, Baba takes us to the playground while Mama sleeps. Lee and I are on the climbing frame. Baba pushes Sansan on the swing. And then Sansan says she's hungry and wants to go home to have noodles. We walk home, slower than usual. I run ahead and push open the door. The wardrobe is open and all Mama's clothes are gone. "Where's Mama?" I say. Baba sits on the bed. He looks at us. Lee and Sansan stand by the door. They haven't moved since we got home. "Almost forgot." Baba stands up, talking to himself. "Noodles," and heads towards the kitchen. Right, that's it.
Thank you very much, Mimi. That was great. Can you just let us maybe chat with us a little bit about, why you initially joined our group last year?
Sorry, I didn't hear that bit.
I was just going to say, just to talk about perhaps why you joined the group in the first place last year.
Oh, right. Yes,
Yeah,
of course. Yeah, I have been wanting to join a novel group for ages because I have been working on a novel and I so needed some help to keep working on it and but more importantly really help to get some feedback, because when I write I can't tell what is working and what isn't working, and it's just so great to be in a group with such fantastic people who tells me every single time, yeah, this is working, this is great, we like that. And then there are these places where you might want to consider doing things to it. I can't tell you how much I've learned. It's absolutely been wonderful.
Oh, thanks, Mimi. We love your input as well. How do you feel like this particular draft that you're working on has developed over the last year?
Oh my gosh, it's I have learned so much. So when I come to the group with a piece of writing and I get the feedback, I would go back and obviously, I will take into account what has been discussed. And what is so interesting is that, I sometimes keep visiting the same piece. And it's not just, I go to the group and the group tells me, this is great. Oh, maybe you can have some development on these points. It's not just that, it's the overall learning that I have gained. So now I can look at a piece, even if I hadn't gone to the group, I'm at a much better position to judge. Not so much when I'm writing, because you need a little distance, but when I revisit something, and sometimes I look at an older piece of writing, I'm going like, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote that. That's terrible. But that isn't the only point. The point is that I have quite a lot of ideas of how I can improve it. And that I think is the most valuable thing I have taken from the group in the past year.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mimi. Thank you so much for your reading as well. Next, we're going to be bringing in Marcia Hutchinson. Now, Marcia was the first from her family to go to university and first from her school to attend Oxford University. In 2010, Marcia was awarded an MBE for services to cultural diversity. diversity. In May of this year, she was elected a Labour councillor. And yes, she's really annoying. She also writes short stories and poetry. Her non-fiction has appeared in the Yorkshire Post and Guardian. Tonight, she's going to be reading from her novel in progress called The Count. Marcia.
Thank you. So this is a section from the middle of the novel. Kelvin, one of the characters, is part of the Windrush generation, and this chapter deals with his experience in an immigration reporting centre. It was a nondescript blue and grey 70s office building in a nondescript complex in a nondescript suburb of Manchester. Salford, actually. It'd string you up if you get the two mixed up. The only clue to its purpose was the snaking queue of people outside. It took Kelvin around 15 minutes to cycle there. He was used to the journey. It was better in the summer when the wetlands were visited by swans, Canada geese and coots with their oversized striped comedy feet. He'd even seen herons and cranes. But mostly now it was cranes of the steel variety, hauling food up to feed the ever-hungry growing buildings. The slosh of brown water against the walls of the canals was soothing, as were the calls of the birds. If he wasn't forced to make this journey every 2 weeks, he would have enjoyed it more. His waterproofs were stuffed in his rucksack. This was Manchester. Rain was an ever-present possibility. Some weeks he was stuck outside waiting for up to an hour. They could easily have opened the doors to allow people to wait inside until their appointment. But where would be the fun in that? You asked for this information, said Kelvin, and I've given it to you. He spread his hands wide on the pile of papers on the desk. The room, cubicle really, was split into two. A woman sat on one side of the glass and Kelvin on the other, and a built-in desk between them. There was a slit between the top of the desk and the bottom of the glass, under which documents could slide. A circle was cut out of the glass at face height, and the space was fitted with some kind of grill. I appreciate that, Mr. Beckford, she replied. Her speech was as flat as the curtains of mouse-coloured hair which hung down either side of her face. Her complexion was pallid, as if she'd never left the cubicle. She wore an unironed cotton blouse, which may have once been white, under a navy blue jacket. Both blouse and jacket were too big for her. Maybe she was trying to grow into them. You have not covered the entire period of your unlawful residence in the UK. She repeated her script by rote, her tone never changing. Her lips were almost non-existent, so that when she opened her mouth, there was just a gash in her face. In daylight, her eyes might have been a pale blue, but in the dim light of the cubicle, they looked flat grey. How do you expect me to be able to provide 4 pieces of information for every year since I was 2? I do not make the rules. It's my job to enforce them. You are required to provide 4 pieces of documentary evidence for every year that you are claiming residence in the UK. I'm not claiming residence, said Kelvin, struggling to keep the tone of exasperation from his voice. I am a UK citizen. As I have already explained, you do not have sufficient documentation to prove that you've been in the UK continuously since 1968, and therefore you are not entitled to a renewal of your right to remain. Look, said Kelvin, trying to appeal to her sense of reason, assuming, of course, that she had one. You know, and I know, that I've been in the UK since I was 3. Are you seriously asking me for 4 official pieces of documentation for every single one of the last 51 years? That's 204 pieces of evidence. Where am I supposed to find documents going back that far? My parents are dead. My primary school doesn't exist anymore. I've provided a sworn affidavit from my old headmaster that I was a pupil there. I've got doctor's reports. I've even got a report from the nursery that I went to when I was 3. There's no evidence that I left the country during that time, so how can you say I'm not lawfully resident? Do not raise your voice to me, Mr. Beckford. I'm simply carrying out my job. We have a zero tolerance policy for aggression. Kelvin sighed deeply. I was not raising my voice, he said quietly. I was simply telling you that I've provided all the information you asked for. Speak up, I can't hear you, she smirked. I have to tell you, Mrs. Kelvin peered at her badge. It was hard to read as the glass screen between them was scratched and opaque in places. Mrs. Wheeler, what you're asking for is impossible. Nobody can find that amount of information. She interrupted, a half smile flirting with the corners of her mouth. You have not supplied all the documentary evidence required by the Home Office to establish continuous residence. I've just lost my job, sighed Kevin. I can't get a bank account. I can't even renew my driver's license, never mind see a doctor, all because of this hostile environment policy. It is not policy, Mr. Beckford, it is the law. The Home Office is duty-bound to apply it in your case. In the absence of documentary evidence, you remain at risk of deportation to Jamaica. This has been hanging over me for 20 years now, said Kelvin, glancing upwards. Do you know what that's done to me? To have lived here, worked here, paid taxes and national insurance, and now you're all trying to throw me out for no good reason. I warned you, Mr. Beckford, not to raise your voice. I will not be spoken to in that tone. I haven't used any tone, said Kelvin, exhaling deeply. I'm simply going over what I've gone through for the last 20 years. Kelvin lifted his chin and looked down his nose, through rather than at her. She probably had a Mickey Mouse degree from a Mickey Mouse university. She didn't want to work at an immigration reporting centre, but she had thousands of pounds of wasted tuition fees to pay back. He didn't hate her, he pitied her. This was her life, border guard, twisting the truth for 8 hours a day for a living. What, asked Kelvin's eyes, does that do to your soul? She tried to meet his eyes, to stare him down, but he was stronger. He had been doing this for what seemed like all of his adult life. He would have lost count of the many immigration laws enacted since he came to England, if he hadn't made it his business to keep track of them. Right, left and centre, they were all at it. Migrant bashing was a national sport. The last so-called left-leaning leader of the Workers' Party had printed the words controls on immigration on the side of a mug, for fuck's sake. Talk about race to the bottom. They sat in silence for almost a minute, cat and mouse. There was nothing Kelvin could say that could convince her. No document that he could produce. Just the purgatory of coming to this God-forsaken building every 2 weeks to go through the same pantomime. So why bother speaking at all? Why not just pour the frustration out through his eyes? She blinked first. Right, that's it, she said, pressing a button on the side of the desk. 10 seconds later, 3 security guards burst in. They grabbed Kelvin. Where do you ras, he shouted. Take your fucking hands off me. You need to calm down, mate, said one of them, twisting his right arm behind his back, as the second guard, in a practiced move, looped a plastic cable tie around his wrists. As you can see, she said, still not meeting his gaze, this man has become aggressive. I can no longer proceed with this interview. I gave him fair warning. I believe it is now time for him to be put in the system.
Thank you so much, Marcia.
Yeah.
So you joined at the same time as we all started a year ago, having kind of realised that this pandemic thing, you know, that virus stuff that was going on wasn't sort of going away soon. And what what were you hoping for when you joined this group?
I wanted community. And a friend mentioned that there was a Black writers group, and having joined the group when we were mainly writing short stories, I heard about the fact that there was going to be a novelist group, and I thought, brilliant, I want to write a novel. In fact, I wrote this, or part of it, as a short story, and the feedback from the short story was so positive. In fact, it was the 18th of June last year, and people said, oh, you've got to turn it into a book, you really should. And I went away thinking, yeah, I've got enough for a book here. And it just started flowing. And every week I would read, when it was my turn, read my chapter to the group. And because it was the same group of people each week, they got to know the story, they got to know the characters, and they could tell me when something seemed out of character for one of my characters, or where I needed to go, or in my case, because of the way I write my dialogue without punctuation, whether it worked or whether it didn't.
Fantastic. And do you think that what do you think you've learned from not only getting feedback, but what about how you've fed back on other people's work? How do you think that has also helped your writing?
It's really given me an appreciation of how writing is constructed. Hearing other people give feedback and pointing out. At first, I didn't feel very confident giving feedback. I thought, well, I don't really know what I'm talking about. But gradually, I felt much more confident because it's personal. You simply say to the other writers, this is what worked for me, and this is where I think the development points are. And if you're just honest, while being completely courteous about what works for you, it really helps, because it's almost visceral when things really work, and you're just so excited and you want the other writer to know. And certainly in one case, when we were giving feedback to another of the writers, I think it's Mimi, I hope she doesn't mind me saying, we demanded more about a particular character. We said, this character needs a love life. And the following week or week, she actually brought it back and she'd written it. She said, you forced me to write. And it really worked. It really worked.
Yeah, I mean, I think even, being a facilitator, for me, it was kind of like an anchor to that year, being able to turn up every other week and just be able to connect with other writers, because you just, even at the best of times, you sort of feel a little bit like this crazy person doing, tapping away at your keyboard, really. So, yeah, thanks very much. Is there anything you'd like to add to the folks here, Marcia, about this group?
Certainly, writing can be a very lonely activity. The actual process of writing, you're always doing it by yourself. So the community of being with other writers just makes such a difference. It literally keeps me going. I'd write a chapter and I get some positive feedback. And actually, the development points are really important as well, where people saying, we think you should do X, Y, and Z, and I'll go back and do it and bring it next week. So it helps you keep going in what can sometimes be a lonely activity, because you've got other people who are in the same place.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. Yeah, that's so true. Okay, so I want to be able to open it up to you guys now. I want to hear why you're here today and where you're at on your writerly journey. So unmute, let's see your faces if you're comfortable with that, or write a question in the chat, and I'm going to get Radhika to read any out. So I'm just going to change the way there we go. Very good. Right. Oh, you've got a lovely comment for both of you. Beautifully crafted story. Wow. That's from Beverley to Mimi. Beverley says to Marcia, a painful story. This is raising the voice of something real. Is Marcia Hutchison a Sheffield-based writer?
No, I'm based in Manchester, but I'm originally from Yorkshire. I'm a Yorkshire woman.
Yes, yes. Oh, wow, that was very moving. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm looking around. It's really lovely to see so many people come tonight in a virtual sense. Are there any questions? I don't want to just keep sort of ranting on and going on. Does anybody have any specific questions about the group? Otherwise, I will just carry on. Oh,
Hi.
okay. Hi.
I was just wondering, so is this a bi-weekly novel group? How
Yes.
does it work?
We meet every other week. It's we say every other week, and just, you know, occasionally you have 3 Mondays in a month. So, but it's two weeks a month. And we start with I think I said we start with a prompt, and we just take turns, you know, so not everybody submits every week. So it might be 2 or 3 people depending on the size of the group.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mimi and Marcia, thank you so much. They were both such wildly different, beautifully crafted stories, and incredibly moving. Like, I really felt the emotion rise, particularly when you're reading it, Marcia, the emotion and the anger for myself, for this character rising as he's going through this almost mechanical, cold process. And this woman, yeah, it was fabulous. Both of them were great. Thank you.
Thank you. I see another. Have I missed any, Radhika? Am I missing any questions here?
There's a question from Sharon. She asks, does the group encompass different genres of novel?
Absolutely. And we have, I mean, we have sort of more political, we've got kind of literary stuff going on, more kind of poetic, and also young adult writing for young adults. And not fantasy, but historical, and I myself am working on a young adult dystopic fiction. So we're up for anything really. I think it's quite nice to be able to it's really refreshing to have different genres and different styles as well in the group. Magical realism YA, absolutely. I'm not YA, but I'm a big fan anyway. When I was a young adult, we never called it YA. It was just books that you read. Oh, okay. Hi, Beverley. And so can I just ask Beverley, is your creative writing doctorate, is it in practice? Are you writing a novel or a long piece of writing?
No, I'm actually writing a selection of 9 short stories.
Oh, okay. And do they have like
the critical side of my doctorate focuses on Andrea Levy trauma and double consciousness in the Windrush generation.
Okay. Oh, wow.
My 9 short stories again focus on aspects of the Caribbean diaspora experience.
I bet that sounds amazing. I mean, I did put out that it's. I mean, currently it's we're all novel writers, but I wouldn't not accept somebody for writing a novella. Or it sounds like your series of short stories also have a sort of overarching theme, and for me, I think
Yes.
that would fit well.
Yeah, because when I saw this, I recognized it was for novel writers, but there are things that you can still pick up that would
Absolutely.
be, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for coming then. Yeah, that's great. It sounds really interesting. Have you got a title for the shorts, for the fiction part?
Yes, but at the moment I'm not certain about it.
Yeah, me too. I keep changing mine. It's very hard, isn't it?
Well, believe it or not, mine was called Loose Connections. Then I went to a Commonword event and got a selection of short stories called Loose Connections.
I know, that was the last one that we did. Yeah. Oh.
So I'm like, oh.
Oh, well, you could just have it as a working title and see how it goes from there. I know it's to do with the zeitgeist. It means you're on track, actually. It means you're talking about some things that are in people's hearts and minds.
Yes.
Absolutely. Let me
I
see.
mean, I know actually that there are other stories that are called similar things, but yeah,
Hmm.
I'll keep it there. We're connected.
Exactly. Oh, I'm just having a look at the chat. Radhika, do we have anything in there?
No other questions at the moment. I don't know if it's worth maybe telling everyone how they can join.
Good idea. That would help, wouldn't it? If you have any other questions, feel free. I think Radhika's going to put my email in the chat and to email me if you're not sure about anything. But if you're kind of ready and you're up for it, what you need to have is an outline of your story idea. You don't have to have a full story written out. An outline of your story idea. We do know that it's not set in stone. Things change as we go along. And maybe a sample of your writing would be good. And I think Radhika's also going to put that in the chat. So we're going to send it to Cheryl@cultureword.org.uk. And I would say to get that done by, we haven't actually thought about a date, but I think, let me just have a look at my calendar. 1 second. It would be great if you could get that done by the 28th of September. It doesn't need to be perfect, just to give us an idea of what you're working on.
Just to say as well, yeah, the group is free to attend, and we do accept donations, as Commonword is a charity. So, but yeah, the group is free to attend.
Okay, so I've just seen something from Shrikant. I really hope that I've pronounced that properly. I think I've jumped a few grades by ending up here. Any tips for someone who is an absolute newbie at this writing thing, like how to outline a novel? Well, that's a whole new workshop right there. I'm not sure where exactly you're at. I would say that if you are really interested in just starting writing and you want to meet other writers, but you don't feel like you have a novel, you're ready to write a novel, I would say, contact Commonword, have a look at identity. If Radhika could put that quickly into the chat, that would be great. But to answer specifically the question about outlining a novel, when I said about a novel outline, it can simply be a one-page kind of list of ideas, really. I mean, we're not expecting, it's not like a synopsis which you would write after you've completed a novel, just a kind of outline of your ideas. So perhaps the character, who your main character is, something about the setting, and telling us what the story is. What is the story about? I hope is that helpful? No, do not apologize. I'm so happy that you're here and joining us. I mean, you won't know until you join, you turn up for these things. It takes courage. I think writing's one of those really odd things that it feels so simple to do, because all you need is like a pen, a paper, your laptop, or whatever, and yet it takes so much courage to write from our heart, and also the courage to turn up to something like this and say, excuse me, I'd like to do this. So no, it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, like, I don't know what a log line is. Is that more like, is that script speak?
Normally, okay. Well, I was also a scriptwriter, and yes, a log line is like like similar to elevator pitch.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, an extent. Yeah. So like an extended. Sorry.
But that's not what you're asking for. You're asking just for an overview of the ideas.
Exactly. So you don't have to get to, this is not going out to publishers. This is just so that we can get an idea of the story that you're telling. So what is the story about? Who is it about? Those things when you're talking about a film that you think, well, who was the character, or a book, who is the character in it, what were they doing, what was important to them, a sense of what it is that you're writing. And sometimes people with outlines and things might even put in a book or two that is in the same sort of genre as well, if that's helpful. Let me see.
To have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yes.
I kind of have the middle. I kind of have the end. I don't have the beginning.
Are you talking about in terms of how it starts or the story itself?
Yeah.
That's why we write. We write to find out those stories.
Right.
So for me, I would just what do you know about the story? Who is it? Who is it about? What is it about?
That's kind of where I'm getting stuck. I have a couple of protagonists in the story. It isn't a one protagonist story. It isn't a hero's journey in the typical sense of hero's journey, which you would typically encounter in a screenplay or an audio story or a narrative or some sort of that. But I'm still trying to come to grips. I don't know how I can put this, but I have a middle and an end. That's the best I can describe it.
I think that seems to me like that seems quite a firm idea, really. With sometimes you don't always have the whole piece. It's almost like when you're looking at a story, everybody does things differently, but you look at a story and you have, like, for example, I always start with a character and maybe a bit of setting, and then I'll start putting them into situations, and the story will sort of roll along as I'm going. So I suppose I'm a bit of a pantster. I start off sort of flying by the seat of my pants, and then once I have an idea of, okay, I think I know what this is about, I will sit down and I will start breaking down chapter by chapter what's going on, who it's about, what it's about, what kind of themes. But that happens later. Normally I start with just kind of writing ideas down, but some people plot beforehand. So it just depends. That's where the phrase plotter or pantster comes from. What was I was going to say something specifically to you, Shrikant, which was that if you can try and write in one page or half a page what your story is about, and articulate, imagine you're at a dinner party and somebody goes, hey, Shrikant, I hear you writing a novel, what is it about? And just kind of write it, and you can rip it up afterwards. You don't have to show it to anybody, but just keep practicing writing about what you're doing.
Right. That's actually a good lead for me to put down my thoughts towards an outline. Answer someone who's asking me at a dinner party what is the novel that I'm writing, and probably try and explain it to them in 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, and then you keep extending it. It's actually, you'll find it's quite hard because ideas tend to be quite complex. But maybe try that.
Yeah, I guess I think I'll try that. Also, that explanation, that whole explanation about plotster or pantster, and how to go about writing those different parts of your novel. Where can I attend that workshop, and do you take one of those?
Let me see. I mean, I don't want to be selling my wares here. I mean, if you can find me. if you have a look at my website, mickelasonola.com, you sign up to my newsletter. I'm often putting things out there for free, and I regularly do a Thursday prompt class. However, also look at the chat, because Commonword's newsletter comes out every month, and I have to say it's really brilliant. I tend to print the Commonword. I know it's bad for trees, but I print Commonword's newsletter out because there's usually so much. It's packed with so much, and I'm ringing things. It's got courses, it's got competitions, open mic nights. There's loads of, it's jammed full of stuff. So I recommend that you just have a look online and have a look at people like Commonword, and sign up to some stuff and see, where your interest. I would go with what you're interested in, go with what sort of appeals to you.
Signed up to the Commonwealth's
Commonwealth newsletter. Yeah,
and just about to sign up to yours.
So sign up. I'm going to sell myself. Yeah, sign up to my newsletter. But Commonword, like I said, I print that one out because it's chock full of information, and it's very generous. So yeah. Radhika, are there any other questions? Are we managing to?
We've got a question from Emma. Is the group for people based in Manchester / in the north, or UK wide?
At the moment, and I hope I don't get into trouble for this, but at the moment, while we're online, I don't have a problem with it being UK wide. Just bear in mind that at some point we may start to go in. I mean, there's no plans to do that before January, right? Yeah. So there's no plans for us to do that. So until then, I'm quite happy to welcome people from all over the UK. Oh, thank you so much, Mimi. Mimi's off. Take care and have a lovely evening with your son. Bye.
Bye, Mimi.
Did that answer that question?
Yes, yeah, thanks.
No worries, Emma.
Thanks, Mickela, it did.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, there's probably loads and loads. As soon as we get off, you probably think, oh, I should have asked that. Just please do email me. I'm really approachable, and I'm a little bit evangelical about getting people to write their stories and becoming authors of their own stories. So yeah, please email me if you're not sure. I know that, bear in mind that these beautiful readings you've heard today started as an idea, started as a how do I write my outline, started as a few words on the paper, and it's through working with people, it's through working with other writers and exchanging feedback that we learn to improve our writing. We learn to hone our writing craft, really. So just bear that in mind, that's how it happens. Oh, I've just seen that Radhika has put on the chat our social media accounts. Please do at us if you want to sort of boast how fantastic this event was, because obviously it is. But yeah, thank you, Radhika. Okay.
Great. So yeah, I think if there's not any further questions, I think we'll call the event to a close.
yeah, but thank you so much for coming. It's absolutely delightful to see so many people turn up. I know it takes a little bit of courage to kind of go, yeah, let's have a go. So thank you for coming along. I look forward to reading any submissions that come our way. I hope you can see that we're very friendly and a very inclusive group. But yeah, keep writing.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you for coming. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye. Bye, Emma. Thank you for coming. Aha.
Oh, it's just okay.
It's just us left.